Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to be a part of this opening ceremony. For those of you that don't know, I had the opportunity to visit your country 2 years ago and spend a couple of months there, and I really fell in love with the beauty of Nepal, and I'm just thrilled to be able to participate in this opening ceremony. I think, that we're all living in a very interesting time right now, and with this pandemic that's challenging all of us all over the world. I think one really bright side to it all is that we've learned, I think as a community of human beings around the planet, we've learned how to communicate this way over these virtual platforms. And in some ways, it allows us to be closer together because we've gotten very proficient at doing these kind of events. And here I am sitting in my living room in the Washington, D.C. area, able to participate in your ceremony there in Nepal. And I think we were able to do this because we're having to work a little bit harder on this virtual world. I want to share some of my experiences today with you. I'm excited that Nepal has had the opportunity to participate in the ISS App Challenge, and I know NASA releases their data to the world so people can make some apps from it. And I think a lot of the focus of this competition has a lot to do with our planet. And of course, having had the opportunity to fly in space and live on the space station for 4.5 months, I spent a lot of time looking out the window at our beautiful Earth. And I chose today to create a presentation to share with you some of the more beautiful places that I've seen on the Earth, although it's all quite beautiful, and talk a little bit about my experience watching the Earth go by underneath me as I floated by. So I'm going to share my screen and start my presentation and share some of my favorite photos. I have to ask our host, though, to please enable the screen sharing because it looks like my screen sharing is disabled at the moment. So if you could re-enable me to share my screen, we can do that. When we do fly around the Earth, every 90 minutes, so every hour and a half, we do one revolution around the Earth. So that means for 45 minutes, I'm in sunlight, and then for 45 minutes, I'm on the night side of the planet. So we see in the course of one 24-hour day, we see 16 sunrises and sunsets. And it's really amazing to constantly be going through that transition of day to night. And I always found the sunsets, the transition from day into night, to be one of the more beautiful aspects of looking at our planet, because you're in a bright sky blue and white clouds, and you slowly shade through, you travel through these darker and darker and darker and darker shades of blue until you get to the night side of the planet. So it's like flying over a rainbow of blue colors, and it's so incredibly beautiful. And sunrises are really, really bright. It's amazing how much our atmosphere shields us from the bright, harsh rays of the sun. And so sunrises were extremely difficult to watch because it was so bright and the light was so bright. But it was really beautiful when the sun would come over the horizon and hit the solar arrays of the space station, and they would light up and be glowing orange for just a brief moment as the sun hit them. And it looks like I'm able to share my screen now. So let me pull up my presentation, and hopefully you can see some of the pictures. We do have an amazing planet. And I think one of the lessons that I learned immediately on my first flight was not to take our planet for granted, because as you see it from space, it looks so fragile and the atmosphere looks so thin. And of course, having Mount Everest in your backyard and knowing that climbing that puts you in an area where there's already very thin air in the context of the whole circumference of the planet, you understand how thin our air is, probably better than anybody else on the planet. These are some pictures from the space station taken over the horizon. The top one on if you're looking at your screen, the top one on the right is a look up the coast east coast of the United States from Mexico. If you look at the planet from space, the thing that is really obvious is how much water is all over the planet. It's a water planet. You know this from your geography classes and your classes in school, but when you see it, it's amazing how blue, and really blue and white are the colors that you see all the time, because the clouds are very prevalent, and they're kind of fun to watch too, because sometimes the clouds seem like they have personalities. So this is some of the horizons that we get every day as we're flying above the earth. It's absolutely stunning. And I never got tired of looking out the window the whole time I was there. One of my favorite areas of the water is the Caribbean, because the water patterns that you can see here at the top of the screen are very beautiful with the different shades of blue. The patterns in the water are from some of the features in the sandbanks and things underneath. And so where the blues are darker, it's deeper. And of course, where the blues are lighter, it's not so deep. And it looks like when you see the whole Caribbean at one time, it looks like modern art with all of the swirls of blues that you see. The bottom two pictures are the Great Barrier Reef along the Australian coast. And the Great Barrier Reef is also beautiful. It looks like little opals and pearls that are just dropped into the ocean, and with the beautiful geometry and the beautiful shades of blue. And so there are certain areas of the world, and then some of the Pacific islands that are just dropped in the middle of the ocean out there near Indonesia and north of Australia are also very beautiful, with the colors that you can see in the aquas and the greens and the light blues and the dark blues and the different swirls. So those are pretty areas of the oceans. It's interesting too what you can see from space, and I imagine as you think about the kind of apps that you want to make from NASA's data, you know, there's a lot you can do to study the Earth and learn things about the Earth. At the top of the page, and these are pictures from South America, there are so many rivers in South America. I was shocked to see them all. You know, again, when you learn about something out of a book and you learn it in class, you kind of have that knowledge here in your head, but then when you experience it and you see it for yourself or you feel it for yourself, it's a different kind of knowledge. And so it really was surprising to fly over South America and just see how many rivers they have. And it's very easy when you fly over rivers and you see them running into the oceans, how much silt and mud and just erosion that comes down through the rivers into the ocean. You can see that in the top right picture, whereas some silt is coming down off the land. The other thing that's really interesting when you fly over, especially populated areas, if you look at the bottom right, you can see the agricultural patterns of how people have designed their fields and the different fields and breakdowns of how the land is used. And that's also some very interesting data you can get from looking at the Earth. And of course, on the bottom left, you know, when a bunch of rivers come together and the tributaries flow out into the ocean, you can see flooding patterns and lots of other information. So there's a lot of information you can get visually from looking at the Earth, besides just the beauty of and the amazement and the appreciation for our planet. The other thing that was really fascinating to me was how magical and colorful and interesting and textured were deserts. These are some deserts in Africa and in the Arabian Peninsula. And I became fascinated with the patterns that you can see in the sand because of, you know, either erosion or wind patterns. I really don't understand it still. And one of these days, I would love to go stand next to one of those sand dunes that you can see in the top, actually in either 4 of the pictures, just to see how tall they really are. They look huge from on orbit when we were taking our pictures. And you can see that the textures of how the sand forms is different in the different places where the pictures were from. And interestingly enough too, on the bottom two pictures, you can see where the sand is coming right up into rocky outcroppings and some low hills. And so I found the deserts to be fascinating because of it's not, the sand has a language or it's speaking. And interestingly enough, as we were flying over Australia, you know, they have a little bit more iron in their sand, in their base rock. And so the sand down there reflects back much more red than this kind of bland orange. And so occasionally I could look at the window and see if we were flying over Australia or the Arabian Peninsula, just because of the reflected light that was coming off of the earth. If it was more orange red, we were over Australia. If it was just a bright kind of an orange yellow, we were clearly over Central Africa or the Arabian Peninsula. And so the deserts became really interesting to me. And I tried to get a lot of different pictures, and I took all 4 of these pictures. I was trying to get a lot of different pictures of the textures to illustrate the variety of geography and geology that you could see from the space station. The other thing that was really interesting too is to look at what humans have done to the face of the planet. Again, you know, I'm sure some of this data is out there in the NASA archives, but you can see on the top left what a city looks like. This is a city on Taiwan. I don't remember which one. You can see it's a port. You can see kind of how the streets are laid out. You can see the buildings shining, reflecting the light from the sun. On the upper right side, that's a strip mine in Mexico. And so you can really see how mining affects the face of the earth and what it looks like when people start, you know, peeling away layers of the planet to get to the minerals and the valuable subsurface elements. Again, in the bottom left, you can see an agricultural pattern in South America and how the fields are laid out. And whether that's, you know, different people owning different plots of land or different crops in the different places, or the way they've done their irrigation, you know, that defines a little bit of how the land use happens. Maybe they're at different elevations, it's hard to tell whether it's flat or hilly in this picture. And interestingly, in the bottom right, you can see irrigation patterns of irrigation in a desert. I saw these in different places, some in the United States, some it's really all over, you know, and if you can imagine in your head a circular irrigation hose that's spreading water around, you can get these patterns. So there's a lot you can tell from looking out the window at the earth about how people are living. Here's some pictures of different parts of the world. Again, China has a lot of open spaces, a lot of mountains and deserts, and I took a few pictures there. They have a lot of times there are clouds and haze over a lot of China, so it was really difficult to get some good shots. Central America also has some mountains. Using a better lens, I could get a little bit closer, and you can see the folds in the rock really clearly from orbit. So it really has a nice texture. You can see in the bottom left, again, another city. This is Miami in Florida. It's right on the edge of the Caribbean. So you can see a little bit of the different colors in the water and how crowded it is with buildings. And again, some more examples of how people lay out their agriculture and the different fields and things that people use. At nighttime, what was really, really interesting and exciting to watch were thunderstorms. And you can see here I was able, and there's better pictures of lightning clouds on YouTube in videos that crews have taken since I have flown on space station, but I was able to get one shot of lightning in a cloud. And what is amazing about watching thunderstorms is that you can see a whole thunderstorm that's maybe 100 kilometers or more large at one time, and you can see all of the lightning that is happening during the storm, and there's so much of it. On the ground, when you are in a thunderstorm, you only see a very small part of the storm. When you see the whole storm from space at one time, you can see the amazing amount of electrical energy, lightning, that is moving around in that thunderstorm. They're very, very, very active. And it's a little bit like watching a fireworks show. And I never got tired of watching thunderstorms. And clouds themselves, I took, oh gosh, I probably took 5,000 pictures of clouds while I was up there, because it was really interesting to see all of the different cloud patterns. I'd be looking over the ocean and there'd be polka dots of clouds just scattered around. Or you would see the clouds come up to the west coast of South America, and you would see them just sort of stop, and there would be a line of clouds that would just stop immediately right by the land. And it was really amazing. And that had to do, of course, with the wind patterns and thermal differences. And there's a lot of information there just watching clouds. Up on the right-hand side of the screen here is a thunderstorm cloud. And I'm sure you're very familiar with seeing a thunderstorm cloud come in towards the city. And there's this big, tall cloud. It's towering. It looks very big and very scary. And here's one of those kind of clouds that I'm looking down on. And they were just as interesting to watch. And even more beautiful is when we were going into a sunset, and instead of the oranges and yellow and red colors that you get from the sun glancing off of the cloud from below when it goes over the horizon on the earth, we would see that from above as well. And so it was always really, really beautiful. In the bottom on the left, this is be of interest to many of you. These are some of the rivers that are draining out of the Himalayas down into India. And you can see with no surprise why some of the flooding that happens in India happens, because there's just a huge number of rivers, and it's a huge drainage system for the mountains there right in your backyard. And alternatively, there's some mountains. I don't remember if these are I think these are the Rockies, but I don't remember which part of the Rockies. But mountains are really interesting from space because they just look like big folds in the earth. And you can see the snow dusting the tops of the mountains, and then rivers that flow through them and channels and things like that. But it looks like maybe someone took some tin foil and just crinkled it up and laid it down. And that's really, really what mountains look like. And then finally, the last picture, I thought you would definitely enjoy this. This is a picture of the Himalayas. And on the left side, of course, is the lower elevations. And there's the big kind of fold in the earth that defines the largest mountain range on earth, and then the Tibetan Plateau and leading off into China on the left. And so you guys are in here somewhere. The picture wasn't good enough for me to sort of pinpoint where exactly Nepal is, but I will tell you, you have a beautiful country, and the mountains that are amazing. And I was really, really honored to visit there. And after seeing it from space, I knew I had to come see from the ground what an amazing country and beautiful geography that you have. And so, you know, these are things to think about. Let me just exit out of this and stop the sharing. And you know, I think as you think about what you might want to do for your application using the NASA data, there's just so many possibilities. There's so much yet to learn about our planet. And I think having the ability to access the data and use your imaginations and extract information for it that can benefit your country, the world, your neighbors, your family. What an exciting challenge. And I really wish you all the best of luck on that. And I'm sure that Suresh and everyone will keep me apprised of how it all goes. So with that, I will, hopefully I didn't run over my time, but I will end it. And again, thank you for the invitation to be a part of your opening ceremony. Over.